Welcome to today's webinar on building your Brandeis Alumni Network. My name is Alexandra Stevens, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Career Programs here at the Hyatt Career Center. Welcome, welcome. I'm joined here by my colleague Jackie Blesso, who is going to be moderating our discussion today and getting to all of your great questions during the Q&A at the end. So welcome, Jackie.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So just to tell you a little bit about what you'll expect today, you will get the link to the recording at the end of this webinar, so welcome to any of you who are joining us in listening to the archived version. And feel free to submit a question whenever you want during the broadcast, and we'll get to as many as we can. So to tell you a little bit about me, like I mentioned, I work here in the Hyatt Career Center. I've been here for just over 7 years, but my background is really in mission-driven marketing. And so I come to Brandeis really fusing together my experience in communications and now career services, which makes me super passionate about LinkedIn and networking and personal branding. I also coach private clients on the side for LinkedIn coaching, which makes this topic very near and dear to my heart. I also work with alumni both as clients of our office as well as volunteers to help current students and each other. And so I talk to alumni all the time, I talk to students all the time, and one of the most frequently asked questions I get is, how do I find alumni doing this? Or I'm moving to LA and I want to find alumni who work at Disney. I'm moving to Thailand. Do any Brandeis alumni live there? And so the tools that I'll be talking about today will help you find Brandeis alumni in your network and hopefully develop some really great connections. Because as the event description for this program said, we really do have a robust alumni network, alumni working in countries all over the world and some of the best companies all over the world. And they want to help you. You want to help each other. And so hopefully this will give you the tools to be able to do that. So what we're covering specifically today is, one, why build your network? And I say build your network even before you're job searching because, well, we'll get to that. The next is we'll focus specifically on online resources to find Brandeis alumni. There are lots of other ways: coming to Brandeis events, seeing someone with a Brandeis coffee mug in the airport, lots of ways to connect, but we'll focus on online resources, including Facebook, LinkedIn, and all of the lovely tools that that has for finding alumni. We'll also talk about the Brandeis Alumni Directory in BConnect. And then lastly, we'll go over some specific outreach tips and tactics, because it's great if you can find people, but then what do you say when you actually find them? And then I'll actually give you some outreach messages, samples that hopefully you can tailor and use in your own outreach. And then we'll do a Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. We're also going to be asking a series of 3 poll questions today. So they're just multiple choice questions. They'll pop right up on your screen, and they'll help me to learn a little bit more about you. So the first question is, why are you looking to build your network? Select all that apply here. Are you looking to make new friends, reconnect with old ones? Are you looking to build a client base? Are you searching for leads for jobs and internships? Are you relocating to a new city and want advice about moving there or how to find an apartment? Do you want to research companies, careers, fields, people? All good reasons. Or maybe you're looking for advice or inspiration on particular career paths. Maybe you want to conduct some informational interviews, or what folks in our office like to call inspirational interviews. Or is it something else? And if it's something else, you can chat it to Jackie in the chat box, and we can share that with all of you. So I'll give you a few more seconds to weigh in. This is a good participatory group. I like this already. Telling me a little bit more about why you're looking to build your Brandeis Alumni Network. All right, so it looks like almost all of you have weighed in. So let's go ahead and close that poll and then share the results with all of you. So it looks like primarily, not surprising, many of you are looking to build your network to find leads for jobs and internships. Very, very popular reason of why you want to network. We all tend to, I also wanted to ask this question because it highlights some of the reasons you may not think of why you might want to network, like making friends or advice when you're moving to a new city. There's Brandeis alumni literally everywhere around the world, and so people are there and ready to help you. And so we all tend to scramble a little bit when we're actively job searching, but it's actually so important if you can start building your network before you even begin. You never know who you'll meet. It'll take some of the pressure off of those conversations, and you have a network of people thinking of you when opportunities may come up. So keep these reasons in mind, both your own and new reasons you may not have thought of. And we'll go into some of our first resources for how to find Brandeis alumni to serve these purposes. So the first of 3 resources that we're going to be highlighting today is Facebook. And you should be using these 3 online resources to find them right away. And Facebook is one that might surprise you. But wait, Facebook can be used for networking? The answer is yes. So not only is Facebook part of your online brand, which a lot of people don't think about, but it also should be part of your networking strategy. And we're going to focus specifically on Facebook groups as a way to find Brandeis alumni. So for those of you who don't know, Brandeis has many groups on Facebook. Some are staff run, others are alumni run, and you'll see the list is pretty exhaustive. So there's regional groups for different alumni clubs nationally. There's even a few international alumni groups on Facebook, and then there's ones for shared identity and interests and affinities. But why should you join these? So I'm a member of almost all of them, if you can imagine, and I see what goes on in these groups on a day-to-day basis. Some of them are more active than others, but what I've seen is they share alumni events that are happening in those areas or around those affinities. People share housing leads. For example, the recent grads network in New York, really big on sharing sublets if people are leaving the country for a bit. If you're looking for an apartment, really great place to start, and it's a network that you already know. Relocation advice. If you're moving to LA or San Francisco, someplace where there may be less people that you know, there is an alumni club Facebook group for that area. Also, industry advice. I'd like to point out the Brandeis Alumni in Film and Television group. It's a wonderful group, super active, with some really great alumni volunteers leading it, and they are consistently posting job opportunities that are affiliated with various alumni film ventures, and they're really active and supportive about welcoming people to the community and answering their questions that they post as discussions. Certainly making friends and networking connections, and job postings like I've mentioned. So check out these groups, see which ones would be of interest to you. You basically would just search for Brandeis in the Facebook search bar at the top of the page and see what comes up for you here. And you'll also get the link to this PowerPoint, which will have all of these links. They're all hyperlinks to the groups themselves. So remember Facebook as a potential networking opportunity. And like I said, the groups are really, really supportive of people who post discussions, and you'll often get multiple responses to your discussion. Okay, so the next tool is LinkedIn, and this is the one we're going to spend a bulk of our time on today. Several of Hyatt's other webinars go into what should be in your LinkedIn profile. There's lots of other resources on that. Actually, next month's webinar is about building your professional brand, and our presenter there will certainly touch on LinkedIn in more detail for that purpose. But today we're going to be focusing on how to use LinkedIn, again, to find people. And so when I ask most people if they're on LinkedIn or not, they usually respond with, oh, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. And then I ask them, oh, okay, how are you using the tool? And then the conversation kind of dwindles. So most people are on LinkedIn. They know it's an important resource. They know they could be doing more, but they're not quite sure of what that should be. So I'd like to get a little bit more information from all of you on our webinar today about how you are currently using LinkedIn. So Jackie, if we can launch our next poll here. So which of the following describe how you use LinkedIn? And select all that apply, it's multiple choice. Do you have a profile, but you haven't done much with it? Or maybe you're a member of groups, but you don't really participate in them. Or maybe you request to connect with people you know, classmates, professors, former co-workers. Or are you going out on a limb a little bit? Are you requesting to connect with people you don't know yet? Or are you using it to research people, companies, and career paths? So just a little assessment quickly about your LinkedIn use, and then we'll talk about these results. So I'll give you a few more seconds to weigh in. And then let's end the poll and share the results with everyone. So as you can see here, most popular is requesting to connect with people you know. Absolutely, it's a great way to stay connected with people, build your network that way. It's a great starting place. Other people, thank you for being honest. I'm a member of groups, but I don't really participate in them. I just kind of add them to my profile. A lot of people do that. I request to connect with people I don't know yet. And this is good. 58% of you are doing that. We'll talk a lot more about that today, obviously. And then researching people, companies, and career paths. So I hear a lot of the first three from people, that I'm using LinkedIn, because I have a profile, I join groups, I connect with people I already know, but I don't do much more than that. So we're going to focus on the last two, of connecting with people you don't know yet and conducting research by finding people that appeal to you. So we can stop sharing those results and get back to LinkedIn's resources. So the first one I want to talk about is probably the most user-friendly, nice to get your feet wet, to see a broad strokes overview of what Brandeis alumni are doing. And so this is called Alumni Career Insights. And you can find this if you go to the Brandeis University page on LinkedIn and then click on See Alumni, or you visit directly linkedin.com/alumni. Now, just a quick note, if you do go to linkedin.com/alumni, the default is the most recent school you attended. So if you studied abroad or you went to graduate school not at Brandeis, that would be your university that shows up by default. You can always change it back to Brandeis. And now what this is primarily used for is it's an easy to use way to browse and filter Brandeis alumni by a number of criteria, and you'll see them right here on your screen. By where they live, so geography, what companies they work at, what industries they work in, what they studied while they were at Brandeis, so their major, what their skills are or what they say their skills are, and how you're connected. And so it's really easy here. For example, if you wanted to see Brandeis alumni who live in New York City, who are working in finance, you could filter the results by that. And then below these search terms appears all of the profiles of alumni who fit that criteria. And it's a really nice visual representation and way to browse. Similarly, if you're a student and you wanted to see what Brandeis alumni who were history majors have gone on to do, it's a really great career exploration tool to find people who have a similar background to you and then see what they're doing now. So under what they studied, you would select history, and then under where they live, where they work, what they do would all adjust to that filter. So again, really nice career exploration tool for those just starting out in their career search, but also career changers, also folks who are working in a specific industry and want to see other like companies. Same thing, folks who want to maybe advance in their industry, work at a specific company and see what the skills are necessary to work at that company. So it's a nice visual representation of these results, but what if you want to get a little bit more specific? And so the tool that I use most often is advanced search. It's not that advanced, it's super easy to use, but this is something that a lot of people just don't remember exists. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to share all of these resources with you in this webinar today, because it's so easy to find the alumni that you want to find. And so this is an easy way to get there, is just at the top of your LinkedIn page, there's the LinkedIn search bar. Don't type anything into it, just hit the magnifying glass and you'll automatically be brought to the advanced search page, which has all of these filtering options on the right-hand side of your screen. So as you can see, you could filter down by keyword, location, so where they're currently living or working, what company they work at, what companies they used to work at, industry, and school. So school, I wanted to highlight specifically here, of course. School is where you would type in Brandeis University, but if you are an alum of any of our graduate schools, or if you're a graduate school student, you could also add the specific graduate school under school. And so you could do one or all. And so when I'm looking for Brandeis alumni in a specific field or industry or company, I always include all schools, because we really use the approach of one Brandeis, that if you attended Brandeis in any capacity, you are part of the Brandeis community, part of the Brandeis alumni family, and you automatically have that built-in connection. So I wanted to highlight a couple different areas here to get a little bit more specific. So under location, this is where you can search not only for city, such as Greater New York City, but you can also search by country. So I just had an alum email me yesterday who wanted to be connected with alumni working in Singapore. And we actually have over 33 alumni working in Singapore just visible on LinkedIn alone. Another staff member here at Brandeis recently asked me if we have a list of alumni working at Microsoft in Seattle. And I'm like, yes, absolutely, we do. And you have access to that list too. So what you would do is just type Brandeis University in school. Current company would be Microsoft, and location would be Seattle. So this isn't LexisNexis. We're not trying to come up with really crazy search terms and ands and ors in an academic journal. It's super easy to use and easy to find exactly who you want. Another search was alumni working at Disney in LA, or alumni working in real estate in Texas. Or maybe you wanted to get a little bit more broad. You wanted to see alumni working in finance who work in asset management. And so you would select finance in the industry, but then in the keyword, you would do a title keyword search for asset management. You can also get a bit more creative, and meeting with a career counselor could help you do this, but you're all smart people. You all went to Brandeis, so you could think, I did meet with a Brandeis alum a few weeks ago who wanted to find alumni who were literary agents. So we did a keyword search for title, literary agent, and school, Brandeis, and there weren't that many hits. But then we started thinking more broadly. We then searched for publishing as the industry. We then added author as a potential title. So if you're thinking about how you can learn more about a specific field, think a bit more broadly if your initial search doesn't come up super full. So this is advanced search on LinkedIn. I invite you to play around with it on your own and put in your own search terms and see who you can find. Now, similar to Facebook groups, there are also groups on LinkedIn. And as many of you noted in the poll, you may be a part of groups, but you don't necessarily post in them or take part in the discussions. And that's okay, because some groups are more active than others, just like the Facebook ones. But I wanted to point out specifically some of these Brandeis groups on LinkedIn, because it gives you additional access to each other that just by virtue of you being mutual group members. So why might you want to join a group? Maybe you're looking for advice or expertise on a specific company, a job function, or an industry. You want to be making networking connections, obviously. That's why you're all here. A lot of groups have a job posting board built right into them. There's a specific tab in the discussion area where members can post jobs. And one of the coolest things that a lot of people don't know is that being a co-member of a group gives you the ability to send a message to a fellow group member. And so I have a picture of this, a screenshot at the bottom of your screen here. So you can see this is one of the groups our office manages called Brandeis University Career Connections. Just under the title of the group, you'll see the number of members. This is where LinkedIn is not super intuitive. To look at the full member list, you would actually click on the number of members, and then the members appear. And you'll see I'm using Jackie here as an example of a group member of Brandeis Career Connections. And you'll see that the message box appears just next to her name. So unlike other people on LinkedIn, when you're doing a search using advanced search or using the Alumni Career Insights tool, you would have to invite them to connect to be able to send them a message. If you're the member of the same group, you can send them a message, and that can be unlimited in length. And it's kind of like, you know, a nice first step before that invitation to connect, which can put some pressure on things. So just a nice reminder that you can send messages to fellow group members. And then I wanted to share just some of the groups here. Similar to Facebook, there are groups based on what school you attended. There are general networking groups, and then there are shared interest groups, and some even as well, they're not listed here, but by location as well. So there's a group for current and former Brandeis athletes, alumni in finance, alumni lawyers, and so many of these groups are also open to Brandeis students. So great way to connect with each other, and it also gets added to your profile. So it's a nice way to enhance your brand there as well. So that is Brandeis groups. If you have questions about groups or anything else on LinkedIn, we'll take those all during the Q&A. And so now I just wanted to move on to our last online resource before going into some outreach tactics. I hear this a lot. I wish Brandeis had an alumni directory, or I wish there was a way that I could find the email address from my old roommate at Brandeis. But wait, there is an alumni directory. And so the alumni directory in BConnect is probably one of the least known resources that you could be using right now to help you connect with Brandeis alumni. Now, it is open to only alumni. That is the only caveat. So students, if you're tuning in, you will get this upon graduation, you'll get access to this. But for the alumni on the call, you access this by going to alumni.brandeis.edu. There's a little login area in the top right corner, and you can log in with your unit ID and password and get access to the directory. And why would you want to do this? Well, similar to the other tools, similar to LinkedIn, you can do filtered searches on a number of search terms like employer, location, graduate school, class year. But the most important thing to remember about the alumni directory is that you get personal and business contact information for individual alumni. So this is really great. So I'm using my colleague Karen Rogel's screenshot of her profile in the directory, and you can see there's all these little drop-down areas. So for personal information, that'll include her name, her address, her email address, contact information as well. Business information includes where she works, where she has formerly worked, and education information is both her Brandeis and graduate education, if any. And that all appears here. It's all searchable. And so what I would recommend doing is conducting your searches on LinkedIn first, because LinkedIn is much more up to date and much easier to search. But then once you find folks you want to talk to, you want to reach out to, then look them up in the directory and get their email. Getting an email is a lot warmer potentially than sending a message on LinkedIn, and potentially not everyone is checking their LinkedIn inbox. So Just a little trick, if you are a fellow alum, to use LinkedIn to search for them in the directory, then on the directory, search for them and get their email address. If you do choose to search on BConnect, I would also recommend just confirming that everything's up to date by trying to find them on LinkedIn and vice versa. So all of these tools can really be used in concert with one another and should be used with in concert with one another. There's no be all end all of the perfect solution, but these are just 3 different tools that you can keep in your toolkit to hopefully help you better connect. The other piece here to remember is to update your own information. So if you want to be found in turn, networking is a two-way street. People may be looking for you, your old roommate may be looking for you and want to reconnect. So make sure your own business and contact information is up to date in your profile as well. Okay, so we're moving on to the last third of our presentation today, which is, but what do I say? So you have the tools, you found these really wonderful people that are totally going to help you for all of the reasons you outlined in the first poll. But what do you say when it's actually time to reach out? So Jackie, we're going to launch our third and final poll here. And this is just you taking inventory of your own level of confidence when approaching a new contact. So how confident are you in your own approach to reaching out to new people? Are you very confident? I know just what to say. Thank you. Please write all of my emails. That would be great. Are you just somewhat confident? You know, it helps if you can identify a clear connection that you have with that person. Or are you being honest and just saying, you know what, I'm not at all confident. Like, why would they even want to respond to me? Even if I am a Brandeis person. So I'll give you a couple more seconds to weigh in, and then we'll share the results. So as you can see, vast majority of folks are not feeling very confident, though some of you are, and that's awesome. Congrats. Hopefully maybe you can give us some examples of some of the outreach messages that you've used. But most of you are somewhere in between, either not confident, you're not sure what to say, or you are confident only when there's a really clear connection. And so we're going to talk about some outreach tips and tactics that'll hopefully help you all to feel more confident, and in addition, help your new contacts to respond to you, because we all want to be upping our success rate, right? So we'll go ahead and move on to that, the tips and tricks. So the first is, and we kind of touched on this at the beginning of the presentation, is start with who you know. So one of the easiest ways to build your network is to start with people you already know, but maybe haven't thought about in a professional lens. So family members, friends, current and former classmates. You never know what your former classmate is now up to since their time at Brandeis. Former teachers and professors, staff advisors, former supervisors, coworkers. So start with who you know. And then start to move into who you share connections with. So that's what we're here to talk about today, obviously, is Brandeis alumni. And this is just a little reminder to hopefully boost everyone's confidence, but based on my own experience over the last 7 years, talking with hundreds and maybe thousands of Brandeis alumni, they generally want to help you. They are looking for ways to help Brandeis students and fellow students. You just need to position yourself for success. So there is a bit of a game when it comes to networking. And so we'll get to that a little bit when we talk about sample messages. But you need to be putting your best foot forward. And just because you both went to Brandeis doesn't mean that's necessarily enough to get someone to help you, though it's certainly a good start. The other thing to remember is that networking is a two-way street, and to be selective. So not only are you looking for others out there in the world, but they're also looking for you. And your network is a reflection on your own professional brand. So do be selective when when folks are requesting to connect with you on LinkedIn, are you just accepting willy-nilly? Do you really know them? Think about that. If someone were to say, oh, I see you're connected to Jackie Blesso on LinkedIn. She just applied for a job here. Could you tell me a little bit more about her? Oh, I actually don't know Jackie. So just something to keep in mind, that it is a two-way street. So we'll talk about this a lot more, but please, 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 if you take away nothing else from this presentation, always add a note to personalize the invitation. And this is specifically on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, we've all got the invitations to connect from strangers that are just the generic, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. And what does that say? Nothing. They didn't do their homework. You don't know who they are. You don't know why they want to be connecting with you. And so LinkedIn has gotten smart about this and is actually helping its users by giving this little reminder that you'll see at the bottom right hand of your screen. So when you do select invite to connect with someone, LinkedIn reminds you, you can customize this invitation. LinkedIn members are more likely to accept invitations that include a personal note. So do always add that note. It's one thing if you're requesting to connect with your mom. I'm sure you could just send her the generic one. I hope she won't reject you. But always personalize that invitation. If you have the opportunity to send a message or to send an email because you found their email address in the Brandeis directory, do that. So the invitation to connect note is short. You don't have a lot of characters to say all that you want to say. So take advantage of sending a message through groups or sending an email because you do have more space to get your point across. Another tip that helps with the response rate from your outreach to new contacts is getting introduced from a mutual connection. So if someone you know knows someone that is very interesting to you and you'd like to talk with them, ask them to introduce you. But in that ask, always be sure to expect that your email will be forwarded. And we'll go over this in a sample in just a second. And then last, be sure to follow up, say thank you, and find ways to stay connected. I'd say this is one of the bigger gripes that I hear from alumni who attend events and serve as a resource to help others, whether it's students or fellow alumni. They're like, yeah, I met all these great students. They were lovely. We had a nice initial conversation, but I never heard back. I never got a thank you email. I gave them my business card. I never heard back from them again. So it's so important to maintain those relationships and say thank you, but also to stay connected. So in that thank you, or a couple weeks down the line, finding another reason to get in touch with that person. And that's the way that you're able to stay top of mind. And hopefully, you've made a great impression so that when that person has an opportunity for you, they're thinking, oh, Jackie was really great. I met her at that event and then she followed up with me and sent that really interesting article. Like, I should forward her this open job posting. So be sure to always follow up, say thank you, and stay connected. The last tip is an answer to a question that I get a lot, which is, should I sign up for LinkedIn Premium? This is a paid service. LinkedIn's basic account is free. I always say no, unless you're working in a very specific field, like recruiting or something like that requires that you have access to some additional tools through LinkedIn. But really, the basic account should allow you to do everything you need it to do if you're using it the right way. So I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more in the Q&A if people have questions, but I say right off the bat, start with basic. You can do a lot with it, especially if you use some of these tips and tricks. Okay, so now just before we get to the sample outreach messages, I just wanted to speak generally about what to say and what not to say in an outreach message. So the first thing is, so this is assuming that this is a stranger, not someone you know, and you're reaching out to them for the first time. So the first tip is to be specific. So why them? Why are you reaching out to this person at this point in time? for what purpose? And so you really want to show you've done your homework here. You want to get to the point. Oftentimes I've received very long emails from students, alumni, other people wanting to do informational interviews with me. And I get to the bottom of the email and I'm like, but what do they want? I know all about their career background. I know all about what they're interested in, where they worked in the past, but they didn't ask me for anything. So why are they emailing me? What is your point? It's also important if and when you have it, and we're talking about Brandeis alumni, so you certainly have common ground, but to reference it. Don't assume that they know. Don't assume that they're going to look at your LinkedIn profile. Don't make assumptions. Specifically reference your common ground. Did you both go to Brandeis? Did you share the same major? Have you worked at the same company in the past? Do you know someone? Do you both have a mutual connection? So make sure that in your initial ask, you're referencing what you have in common. This is a biggie. We've all heard of this before, but don't ask directly for a job or internship. What you're asking for is their advice, their expertise, or a bit of their time. And this is where, the game comes into play. And I've talked with alumni many times and they're like, I know the student's emailing me because they want a job at JP Morgan. Like, I know that is deep down the reason why they're emailing me. But if they ask me for 15 minutes for me to share my work in asset management with them, I'd be happy to do so. And then if they make a great impression on me, I'd be happy to forward their resume. But it needs to start with that easy ask for advice or expertise or time, and not directly a job or internship, even if both parties know that that's the underlying reason. Related to this, do not include your resume unless you are asked for it. That's also just jumping the gun, adding additional pressure, and really putting the contact in an awkward position. And they may not want to respond. They may not know how to respond to that. There may be a time where you're asked to provide your resume, and that's certainly appropriate to do so, but don't include it right off the bat. Another thing is use flattery. We all are vain beings and love hearing that other people find us interesting or think that we're an expert in our field. So where it's appropriate, use flattery and show that you're really impressed by this person's career, and that's one of the reasons why you want to talk to them. And lastly, along similar veins, we all want people to be polite with us, right? So show flexibility in your ask. Don't demand for a meeting. Say, might you be able to speak with me for 15 minutes? Give them an out, give them flexibility. Say by email or phone, would you be able to share your advice by email or phone? So you're putting it in their court and giving them the opportunity to decide how they may want to respond to you. And then always express gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you in advance. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you for speaking with me. Thank you for providing that wonderful insight. Always say thank you. It goes a long way. So in the minutes we have remaining, because I do want to leave time for Q&A, we're going to go into some sample outreach messages here. So the first is a sample invitation to connect note. Now, I mentioned before, these are limited in the number of characters. You get 300 characters. It's like barely 2 tweets to say all that you need to say. But so here's an example. Hi, Deborah. I came across your profile in the Brandeis Career Connections group. I'm a math major considering a career in finance. I'd love to learn more about your experience at Citi and moving to New York after graduation. Might you have 15 minutes to speak with me? Thank you in advance, Alexandra. Now, I wanted to point out, based on some of those what to say and what not to say tips, first I included here how you found them. I came across your profile in the group. What do you have in common? You're both Brandeis folks, and maybe Deborah was also a math major. Why her? Because she's working at Citi, because she's working at Citi in New York, because she is a fellow math major. And what is your specific ask? 15 minutes. Everyone could spare 15 minutes. And so you're being specific, You're showing flexibility. Might you have 15 minutes? And you're showing your gratitude. Thank you, thank you. So you can see I only have one character to spare here. This is a very short message, so get to the point and make it about them. So that's an invitation to connect note. One of the other tips and tricks I mentioned was getting introduced. And so this message is very important, even if it's going to a friend of yours, because you have to assume that they are going to do what is most easy to do, and that is just to forward your email. So here's an example of that message. Hi, Caitlin. Hope you are doing well. Are you still enjoying marketing at Reebok? I'm writing because I saw that you're connected to John Smith on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat with him about his work in corporate social responsibility at the Reebok Foundation. I'm currently exploring mission-driven opportunities outside of higher education and want to speak with others about their experiences before making the move myself. Would you be willing to introduce us? Thank you so much for your consideration and hope to talk to you soon. So Caitlin is someone that I know. She may be a good friend of mine, but I still have to keep this professional because likely they will be forwarding this to John Smith directly. And so keep in mind those same elements. Why are you interested in talking with John Smith specifically? What's in it for you? You're asking, would you be willing to introduce us? Not, would you be willing to pass my resume along to John Smith? Thank you for your consideration, show gratitude. And so this is a really great way to lend credibility to your outreach. So Caitlin hopefully will use her name and use her own relationship with John Smith to hopefully to benefit me. And maybe she'll add a little nice note. Alexandra is great. Would you be willing to talk to her? I think you'd have a lot to talk about. So the introducing message, really, really important and a good way, again, to up that chance for someone to respond to you. Now, lastly, here's a sample message that you would send either as an email or a message on LinkedIn to a fellow group member or a connection. So this is unlimited. So I'm using the same scenario with John Smith, but in this case, I do not know John. He is a stranger. So hi, John. I came across your profile on LinkedIn because of your corporate social responsibility work at Reebok, and because we both went to Brandeis. I'm class of 2008. I'm exploring mission-driven opportunities outside of higher education, and CSR roles are of particular interest to me. Would you be willing to speak with me briefly about your community engagement experience at the Reebok Foundation? It sounds really interesting, and your insights would be very helpful as I consider my next steps. Thank you for your consideration, and I hope to hear back from you. So again, using the same elements here, it's like a little formula that you can hopefully apply to your own outreach. Where did you find him? You found him because you were searching for Brandeis alumni working in this field on LinkedIn. Great. Why him? He's working in this field at a really cool company. You're thinking about changing careers into that field. What is your common ground? You both went to Brandeis. Are you showing you did your homework? Yes, not only do you know he works in corporate social responsibility, but you were able to see very easily from his profile that he's specifically working in community engagement at the Reebok Foundation. So it shows that you're not just sending off a blanket copy-paste job to 20 different contacts. You really want to talk to him particularly. You're using flattery. Your job sounds super interesting and your insights would be so helpful to me. And then you're expressing gratitude. Thank you so much for your consideration. I really hope to hear back from you soon. So this is simple. It's not perfect. I'm sure many of you on the call today could jazz this up and make it even more effective. But this has the baseline elements of what I've seen worked when you're reaching out to a new contact for the first time. So we are coming to the end. So if you have any questions, do submit them now. But we went over your why. Why do you want to build your network? Are you job searching? Are you doing career research? Are you relocating to a new city? Do you want to meet new friends? Are you looking for advice or inspiration on a new career path? You have your why. You have your how. You know that you can use Facebook, which you maybe have never thought of before as a professional networking resource. You can use 3 different tools on LinkedIn to find alumni of interest to you. And you can also use the Brandeis Alumni Directory as well. And you have your what. You know what to say to hopefully up those response rates for your outreach emails. So now it's time to hopefully start building your Brandeis networks. So I see a few of you raising your hands. We are going to be just using the text-based Q&A, just given the number of folks on the call. So if you have a question, feel free to submit it to the Q&A box as well. So Jackie, do we have any questions?
We do. One question comes from a participant that is a practicing attorney, and it's about building a client base. And so he said that a lot of his colleagues that have come from various colleges and universities have, received a lot of their clients and business and referrals through their people that have gone to their school. So the question is, what's the etiquette around reaching out or trying to connect with Brandeis folks when it comes to building your own business?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And there is a fine line, right, between building connections that are going to be mutually beneficial, and hopefully if it's a business relationship, it is. Hopefully you're providing a service that people are seeking. At the same time, it can also borderline on spammy. So you need to be very careful. And I think some of these principles still apply of the being specific, of doing your homework, of why you're reaching out to this person in particular, and not just doing a generic blast that's going to tens or hundreds of people. And so I'd say particularly with law, so many of the lawyers in the Lawyers Network are already talking together. And so there is the Brandeis LinkedIn group, especially for lawyers. There's the Brandeis Lawyers Network that has chapters across the country and hosts different events. And so that's a really great way to share clients and to make referrals. And so that would be where I would say the etiquette is. If it's mutually beneficial, if you identify that this person has a business need and you would help solve it, to absolutely offer that up. Also, I think the introductions are really helpful. So, asking folks in your existing network to introduce you to people that might be in need of your services. That would be a really great referral tool, obviously.
Another question came in about maintaining contacts. So you've walked us through all the wonderful ways in which we can connect with people initially. What are some ways to stay present or on someone's mind once you've established the first connection?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one, it depends obviously on how you've made that connection. So I'm going to assume maybe you're connected to this person on LinkedIn. That you met them at a conference or something like that, or you had a wonderful informational interview. Now they're a connection on your LinkedIn account. Great. So some of the easiest ways is just interacting with people's content and activities. It really doesn't take a lot to like one of their posts, or if an update comes up in your news feed that they recently got a new job or a promotion, to send a little message of congratulations, and to stay top of mind that way. Another thing is just to find reasons to reconnect, make up reasons. I heard an alum give this tip on a panel a few weeks ago that was like, say that you're going to be in New York on Friday. Do you want to grab coffee? Even if that person's the only reason why you're going to New York that day. So make it sound like it's part of your plan, and that, oh, you happen to be in the city that day. Would you like to grab coffee? The other thing is, if you think of something that is of mutual interest to you, maybe it's a topic that you discussed during your informational interview and you came across a really interesting article that they would be interested in, forward that along to them and say, I thought of you when I read this. you know, it really made me remember our discussion on X, Y, and Z. And I just want to reiterate again how much I appreciated getting your take on CSR careers. So liking, commenting, using social media really to your benefit in that way, because it makes it so easy to keep in touch, but also finding a nice personal connection that you both shared during one of your past conversations.
Going in a different direction, kind of testing the waters, how you might feel about this. After applying to jobs, so let's say you've already submitted an application. One of the participants mentioned that they had emailed the Brandeis alums to ask them to follow up on their application materials. Just wanted to see if that's something that people might be receptive to, or if that comes across as being too forward or aggressive.
Yeah. I think, you know, there are definitely things that you can do, and I will give you a couple tips if you've already applied. Like, all is not lost. You can still be talking to people. You can still be actively networking. Would I go out and specifically ask a Brandeis alum and say, hey, I just applied to this internship at JP Morgan. Would you mind checking on the status of my application? I think that is too forward. You don't know if they're part of the application process. You don't know if they know the hiring manager. But again, going back to the tips and tricks I talked about is asking for that advice and expertise. So you can be very upfront and honest and say, hi, I'm reaching out because I see you work, I keep using asset management at JP Morgan, but we'll go with it. I see that you work in asset management at JP Morgan. I actually just recently applied for the asset management internship there. You know, given that you've had a successful career at the company, I was wondering if you could share any insights with me as a recent grad on how I could be successful in the interview process. So again, you're getting very specific. You're saying, oh, you have all this wonderful advice and insights. This is great. I'm not asking you to do anything with my application. I'm just hoping you can give me a little bit of advice. And then that's putting it back on them. If they know the hiring manager, if you end up having a nice conversation, they can forward you along. And so I think the opportunities are endless there. You really just need to go in with an appropriate ask.
Thank you. I'm hoping I'm understanding this question correctly. I'm just going to read it verbatim if it's submitted as an anonymous, so if anonymous could clarify if I get it wrong. Someone mentioned that they're in the financial services industry and they have a particular program at their firm that allows them to professionally share and refer clients. So how could this person approach this business opportunity using the Brandeis network?
Yes, if that person wouldn't mind just sending in a clarifying question, because I'm not quite sure on what they're asking for.
Sure, that would be helpful.
So if we could skip to the next one, and we'll come back to that if you can just clarify a little bit.
The only other question is very tactical. I think Alexandra mentioned that everyone's going to be getting a copy of the webinar archived sent out. The ask was specifically for templates or examples for the, add the note on LinkedIn or the outreach email. So that will all be included in the webinar. So you'll have that text. Is there any other place that content exists?
Yeah, so I think we have a few samples on our website as well. And so I can include the links to the networking sections on both the student and alumni website in the follow-up email. There is one other thing I wanted to mention, and this goes for folks who are actively job and internship seeking. And I said, it was probably like a wah-wah when I was like, you should really start before your job and internship search begins with building your network. But like I said, all is not lost. You can certainly keep actively networking. And one of the great ways to do so that takes some of the pressure off is if you go back to that advanced search for alumni, you can search for past companies. So, for example, with that JP Morgan example, you can look for alumni who formerly worked at JP Morgan in asset management and get insights that way. And you know what? Former employees are still connected to current employees. And so I've seen this work really well for folks, that it takes some of the pressure off because that person can't get you a job at a company they don't work at anymore, but they still have contacts there. They still have insights and expertise to share. And so when you're conducting your searches for, if you're specifically interested in working at Disney in California, that's wonderful. But don't focus only on the current employees, focus on past employees too, because they may have some additional insights being a past employee that maybe a current employee would feel uncomfortable sharing with you. You might get some of the juice out of the past employees that you might not get out of a current employee. Okay, wonderful. So we are about at time now, so I just wanted to share some next steps with all of you. So the first is to fill out our satisfaction survey. Let us know how we did today. We tailor all of these programs based on your interests. So we do have alumni webinars free every single month during the academic year. And our next webinar is for February on why personal branding matters. That will be led by Marissa Pick, who's a Brandeis alum, class of 2007, based in New York. She's a digital marketing strategist there. And she'll certainly touch on LinkedIn and lots of other tools for building your personal brand and why you should do that. Also join the groups on LinkedIn, but especially ours. It is open to the full Brandeis community, and it's called Brandeis University Career Connections. If you want to talk about any of these networking strategies in more detail, Brandeis undergraduate students and alumni are welcome to make an appointment with our office by calling this number or logging into Handshake if you are a current student. And also, I'm happy to answer any questions directly from you as well. And here is my contact information. I also want to remind all of you, as you're embarking on networking, to please practice safe networking. That's something that's come up a lot lately about currently with the Me Too movement, of course, it brings it top of mind. But as you're meeting new people and meeting strangers for the first time, remember to meet in a public place, tell a friend where you're going, leave a situation if it feels uncomfortable. Tough things to remember, but just something I'd be remiss in not mentioning when we're talking about meeting new people. So network, and do it safely. And Jackie, anything else from the Q&A box?
I did get a little bit of clarification on the previous question that was answered, that was asked. So the person who's in the financial services industry allows lawyers to share part of the fees that's charged to the client if they recommend someone to be used. So it's a way that it can be mutually beneficial in that it brings business into the financial services firm, but it also can help whoever's the referring person gets a portion of the fees. So yeah. Could I present this or find ways to build this?
Yeah, so I would say, definitely reach out. If you know the person who's managing that program, reach out to them and get more information about how that's managed. A way in for that would be to reach out to a Brandeis alum who works at that company and see if they know anyone who is part of that program. And then to share that information with fellow lawyers by posting a discussion. I think people so often forget about the discussion feature of both Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. So posting a discussion and hopefully striking up a conversation with folks to get their feedback and see how that might be applied to the Brandeis Lawyers Network. So thank you all so much for joining us today. This was a chock full hour. I hope it gave you some practical takeaways to apply to your own networking strategies. And it is a great follow-up, our webinar in February, so I hope you will join us then. So from all of us here at the Hyatt Career Center at Brandeis, have a wonderful afternoon and happy networking.